He sat alone with a hungry baby after his wife passed, until Chinese girl knocked with full breasts. The wind screamed across the plains of Sage Creek, Wyoming, in the winter of 1879, tearing through the barbed wire fences and slamming into the wooden frame of the ranch house. Snow blew sideways in thin, sharp blades, slicing the air like razors. It was the kind of cold that cracked lips and cut through wool. Inside the cabin, a baby cried. Owen Croft stood hunched over the small cradle, eyes bloodshot, hands shaking, his thick flannel shirt damp with sweat despite the chill. In his arms, baby Rose screamed, her little fists clenched, her face red and scrunched with hunger and frustration. "Come on, sweetheart," he muttered, trying once again to guide the bottle of goat's milk to her lips. "Please, just a little." She turned her head and wailed louder. The bottle slipped from his fingers and rolled across the wooden floor. Owen swore under his breath and bent to pick it up. His back ached. His arms trembled from fatigue. It had been a month since Martha died. 1 month since the fever came in the night and took her before sunrise. Rose had been only 2 months old then. Now she was 3 and starving. She wouldn't drink the goat's milk. No matter how warm he made it, no matter how he sweetened it, her tiny body refused. Owen paced the floor with her, bouncing her awkwardly, whispering soft nonsense, trying not to cry. His boots thudded heavily. His hair was unwashed, his beard overgrown. He hadn't slept through a night since the funeral. He barely ate. He barely thought, just fed fires, changed diapers, rocked, shushed, pleaded. And still, Rose cried. Last week he had saddled his horse and ridden to every home within 10 miles. Anyone with a new baby? Anyone nursing? The answers were the same. Soft voices, gentle refusals, shaking heads. No one's had a child in months, Owen. I'm sorry, son. His last stop was the church. Even the pastor looked at him with pity. There's nothing I can do but pray. So Owen returned home and wrote a sign in shaky, blocky letters, need help. Infant hungry. Breast milk needed. He nailed it to the front gate. The wind tried to tear it down. He hammered it again and again. For days had passed. No one came. That night a storm rolled in. The fire in the hearth sputtered, casting flickering shadows across the room. Outside, the snow thickened, tapping the windows like bony fingers, and Rose screamed. Owen dropped into the rocking chair by the fire, pulling her close to his chest. His big arms wrapped around her small, writhing body. He kissed her damp forehead. I'm trying, he whispered. I don't know what else to do, she wailed louder, her cries raw and hoarse from hours of hunger. He rocked harder, faster. I used to be the strongest man on this ranch, he muttered, voice cracking. Now I'm just a father with shaking hands who can't feed his own child. His eyes burned, his throat closed. The storm outside howled louder. Inside, Rose's cries didn't stop, and Owen Croft, rancher, widower, once the toughest man in Sage Creek, held his starving daughter in the dark and felt himself break. The rain struck the roof like fists, relentless and angry. Outside, wind howled through the prairie, lashing the cabin with wet gusts that crept through every seam and crack. Inside, Owen slumped in his chair, boots still muddy, holding his 3-month-old daughter to his chest. Rose screamed, her tiny body curled against him, fists clenched. He rocked her, humming broken lullabies. Please, baby girl. Please. Then, a knock. Knock, knock, knock. He flinched. The sudden noise startled both him and Rose. Her wail paused only for a breath, then rose again. Another knock. Urgent, shaky. Owen rose, arms tightening around his daughter. He cracked the door. Wind slapped him in the face. A young woman stood there, soaked to the skin, clutching a small cloth bag. She was Chinese, her face pale, framed by straight, jet-black hair plastered to her cheeks. Her dark, almond-shaped eyes were wide with exhaustion and fear. Her cloak hung heavy with rain. Please, she said, her voice a soft whisper against the storm. I just need a place to stay for the night. He stepped aside without a word. She entered slowly, dripping water onto the floorboards. Then it happened. Rose screamed again, sharp, high-pitched, desperate. The woman stopped cold. Her eyes locked on the infant, her breath caught. Her hand flew to her chest, pressing over the simple fabric of her blouse where dark stains had begun to spread. She took a step back, her eyes wide with a look of profound pain. Tears filled them instantly. She began, then faltered. 5 months ago, I had a son. He died 2 months later. She bit her lip, trembling. Since then, my body, it does not understand. He is gone. The milk still comes. Every day, I throw it away. Every drop hurts. Owen didn't speak. His throat was too tight. She's hungry, the woman whispered. Let me help. Pleased, he hesitated, then nodded. She set down her bag. Her hand shook as she approached. She unfastened the front of her blouse with delicate, practiced motions, her breath ragged. Owen held Rose toward her. The woman took the baby into her arms like she was made to do so. Her lips trembled. Her eyes never left Rose's face. The baby rooted instinctively, whimpering, then found contact. She latched, her mouth pressing eagerly. A loud suck, then another. Her tiny body shuddered with relief. The woman gasped. Tears streamed down her cheeks as milk flowed. Her shoulders heaved with silent sobs. Rose nursed like a starving animal, each swallow audible in the hush of the storm. The room filled with the sound, the rhythmic sucking, the baby's soft sighs, the woman's gentle murmurs. It's okay. Eat, little one. I've got you. Owen watched, his heart clenched. He had tried everything. Every bottle, every trick. Nothing had worked. But now, in the arms of this soaked, trembling stranger, his daughter found peace. The woman closed her eyes. A single word escaped her lips. Thank you. Rose suckled slower now, content. Her fists loosened, her cries faded. Ethan stepped forward and gently draped a blanket around both of them. She opened her eyes, looked up. What's your name? He asked softly. She said. I'm Owen, and that's Rose. I looked down at the baby who now rested quietly against her chest. She kissed her forehead. The storm still raged outside. But inside the cabin, something warm had taken root. A thread, a bond. Between a grieving woman, a desperate father, and a child who had finally found what she needed most, milk, warmth, and a heartbeat to rest against. The storm passed, but Mai stayed. Not by any formal invitation, not by words even, but by necessity. Rose needed feeding every few hours. Owen, silent and sleep-starved, never asked her to go. And Mai, with her small satchel tucked beneath a cot and her shawl drying by the fire, simply remained. She rose with the baby, fed her while the stars still clung to the sky, and laid her gently back to sleep before the first orange light cracked across the plains. Her hands moved with a natural grace, wiping Rose's chin, humming under her breath, folding small clothes Owen had never managed to wash properly. Owen watched quietly. That first morning, he hammered together a second bed frame, rough pine, nothing fancy, but sturdy. When Mai stepped into the cabin from the well with a bucket of water, she saw it already set up in the corner, a wool blanket folded neatly on top. She blinked, surprised. You did not have to. Owen rubbed the back of his neck. It ain't much, but it's yours while you're here. She smiled softly. It's more than I had last night. Later, he left a small tin jar by her wash basin. Inside, thick yellow bear fat he'd rendered himself from the winter hunt. A note was scrolled in blocky letters, for your hands. She didn't speak of it, but her fingers traced the jar before she opened it. In return, Mai cooked simple food. She made a thin but nourishing broth from wild onions and a handful of rice she carried in her satchel, and simmered beans with a strip of pork. She swept the floor each morning and hung Rose's washed clothes over the stove to dry. At night, after the baby nursed and fell asleep, curled into her shoulder, Mai sometimes sat by the hearth, wiping tears from her face while pretending to sew. Owen saw them, but he never asked. One evening, as the wind howled low outside and snow danced like ash in the dark, Owen spoke first. "She was beautiful," he said unprompted. "My wife didn't turn." He stared into the fire. "Her name was Martha. She liked to sing when she churned butter. Drove me crazy some days," he smiled, faint and crooked. "She bled too much after Rose was born. We thought she'd be fine. She wasn't." The fire popped. I nodded slowly. "My son was named Wei. He got sick. Fever." Nothing helped. She looked down at her hands. "I still dream about him. Not his death. Just him sleeping or smiling." Rose stirred in her arms, then settled again. Owen watched the baby for a moment, then stood and added more wood to the fire. When he turned, Mai had unbuttoned her bodice to nurse Rose, and instinctively Owen turned away. He busied himself with the flames, saying nothing. Mai noticed. She looked at the strong lines of his back, the way his shoulders carried weight. He never spoke it aloud. "Thank you," she whispered. He didn't respond, but his hand stilled on the fire poker. Word of Mai's presence didn't take long to reach the town. Sage Creek was small, and nothing stayed quiet for long. The whispers were different, sharper. That China woman. Where'd she come from? Strange, don't you think? Still flowing milk, but no child to feed, living with a white man, too. It ain't right, and what does she want for it? Mai heard none of this directly, but she felt it. The stares when she passed through town for cloth or oats, the pauses in conversation. One afternoon, she returned to the cabin with a bundle of soap root and found a parcel of supplies left on the fence post. No one willing to knock. Inside the cabin, though, the air was warmer. Rose had started smiling in her sleep. Owen had repaired the window latch to keep out the wind. Mai placed fresh pine sprigs near the bed to make the room smell clean. They said little, but the silence between them changed. It wasn't empty anymore. It was shared. A quiet understanding rooted itself in the smallest things. How Owen always left water warming for her in the mornings. How Mai folded his shirts even when he didn't ask. How when Rose cried at night, Mai rose first, but Owen always followed just behind, ready with a blanket or a candle. They never spoke of staying, but neither spoke of leaving, and slowly, without permission or plan, they began to build something, not from promises or plans, but from small, necessary kindnesses. The snow fell heavier that week, blanketing Sage Creek in a quiet hush. But no snow could bury the voices that began to whisper. When Owen rode into town one afternoon to buy salt and lamp oil, he felt it. At the general store, heads turned. Conversations halted. Someone near the barrels of dried beans muttered just loud enough for others to hear, "A man's gotta be desperate to take up with her kind." Owen ignored it. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He paid for the salt and turned to go. Another voice, this time unmistakably familiar, cut through the thick silence. "Some folks say she's trading more than milk for a roof over her head," said Bert Hatcher, a ranch hand with more bark than work. "Shame." Owen Croft used to be a man of pride. Owen didn't flinch, but as he stepped outside into the snow, his face was carved from stone. Back at the homestead, Mai was humming softly. She didn't see the shadow at the window. Didn't hear the approaching wagon until the wheels creaked past. But she heard the voices. Ain't natural. A woman like that showing up out of nowhere, she's just staying there like a wife without a name. Either she's mad or she's planning something. The voices faded, but the wound was cut. Mai sat down hard on the edge of the hearth. Her hands moved to her chest, warm, still full, the reminder of what she had lost and what she now stood to lose again. She rose and walked to Rose's basket. The baby stirred, blinked, then began to fuss. "I've got you," Mai whispered, lifting her into her arms. "You're safe, little one. I won't let them take you." Her voice cracked. That night, as wind clawed against the walls, Mai sat awake rocking Rose. Her eyes were hollow with sleeplessness. She had not told Owen what she heard. She could not. In the early hours, just before dawn, Mai stood. She dressed quickly, wrapped Rose tightly in her shawl, and slipped out into the storm. The cold was bitter, slicing through cloth and skin. Mai stumbled through the snow, holding Rose close, her steps uneven, disoriented. She had no destination, only the haunting thought, if I stay, they'll take her from me. They'll say I'm not fit. I'll lose her, too. Rose began to cry louder, desperate. Hush, hush, Mai sobbed, her own voice trembling. Please, baby. Please. The child's wails pierced the silence. Mai dropped to her knees near a thicket of trees, shielding the baby with her body, her hair soaked through, her mind blurred. They don't know. They don't understand. You're mine. You're all I have left. She rocked forward and back, whispering nonsense, tears frozen on her cheeks. The wind howled, the baby cried, and no one knew she was gone. Not yet. The wind howled like a wounded animal. Snow swept across the plains, erasing tracks within minutes. Inside the cabin, the fire had burned low, and the silence was unnatural. Owen stirred from a restless sleep on the floor beside Rose's empty cradle. His hand reached for her instinctively and found only cold wool. Then the silence hit him. No cooing, no soft breath, no Mai. His eyes snapped open. Rose. His voice cracked. He bolted upright, heart pounding as he scanned the cabin. The blanket was gone. My shawl, too. The front door stood slightly ajar, snow curling in. A sick fear gripped his chest. He threw on his coat, yanked on his boots, and saddled his mare with shaking hands. Please, Lord, he muttered, teeth clenched. Let me find them. The storm had swallowed the world in white, but he forced the horse into a gallop, scanning the snow for any trace. They couldn't have gone far. Then, through the swirl of snow, he saw it, an outline against the side of the old hay barn. He slid off the horse and ran. She was there, Mai, curled in the crook of the wall, her back pressed against splintered wood, shawl wrapped around a trembling bundle, her lips blue. She rocked forward and back, murmuring words he couldn't hear. Mai, he called. She didn't respond. Mai, it's me. She looked up, wild-eyed, and clutched the baby tighter. Rose's cries had turned into hoarse, broken sobs. No one's taking her, Mai whispered, eyes wide. They'll say I don't belong. They'll send me away. Owen knelt slowly. I'm not here to take her, he said softly. I'm here to bring you both home. Tears streaked down Mai's cheeks. She's not mine, but she feels like mine. And I couldn't lose her. Not again. You haven't, Owen said, voice thick with emotion. You saved her, Mai. He shrugged off his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders, then gently cradled both her and the baby into his arms. Her body was stiff, but she didn't resist. You're not the woman who took something from me, he whispered. You're the one giving her life. The words hung in the cold air. Mai gasped and then broke. Her shoulders shook as a sob escaped, raw and guttural. She buried her face into his chest, clutching his coat, clutching Rose between them. I did not mean to run, she cried. I was so scared. They say I don't belong. That I'm nothing. You're not nothing, Owen said, resting his cheek against her damp hair. You're the reason my daughter's still breathing. The baby whimpered softly, then fell into exhausted sleep. Owen held them both as the wind roared around the barn. He only knew one thing now. He wasn't losing them. Not tonight, not ever. Snow still clung to their coats as Owen carried Mai and Rose through the cabin door. He eased Mai onto the edge of the bed, gently peeled the baby from her arms, and cradled Rose close. He laid her in her cradle, but not the old one. Beside the bed stood a new cradle, smooth pine wood polished by hours of his rough hands, each corner sanded soft. It had taken 3 nights of sleepless work. Mai looked at it, eyes wide. You built that? Owen nodded. For her? For you? He stoked the fire until the flames licked up strong and golden, then crossed the room and crouched in front of her. "You don't have to leave," he said, his voice low. He reached for her hand. "Stay. Stay and be her mother. Not just for tonight. Not just until spring. For good." Emma shook her head slowly, blinking back tears. "Owen, I am not whole. I lost my baby. I look at Rose and sometimes I see him. Then I remember he is gone, and I'm terrified I'll lose her, too." Owen tightened his grip on her hand. "That fear, I live with it every day since Martha passed. But Rose, she's here because of you." He looked toward the cradle where Rose slept peacefully. "Whatever it is you're carrying," he whispered, "you don't have to carry it alone." "Not anymore." Emma reached out and cupped his cheek, her eyes searching his. "You really want me to stay?" Owen's voice was firm. "I need you to stay. But more than that, Rose needs you. I do not know if I'm strong enough." "You're already the strongest woman I know," Owen said. "You've already done the hardest thing in the world, given love when you had every reason to shut it away." Emma leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. "Okay," she whispered. "I will stay." The wind had shifted by noon, sharp and dry. I sensed something was wrong long before the first boot touched the porch. 3 men rode up on hard-faced horses. One, a tall man with a scar, dismounted first. "Croft," he said, spitting into the dirt. "Time's up." Owen was splitting kindling. He didn't pause. "I don't reckon I know what you mean." "Oh, I think you do," another man said, pointing to a town deputy's badge on his vest. "That loan your brother took before he ran off. It's on your land. That makes it your debt." Owen stood upright. "My brother's choices don't bind mine, but the land does," the third man sneered. "And we've got papers to say so. You pay up, or we take what's owed." Owen glanced at the cabin, at my shadow just behind the curtain. His jaw tightened. "You're not taking anything," he said, voice low. "Not from this house. Not from that child." The deputy snorted a laugh. "You going to stop us?" One man with a tired horse and a baby on his porch. Owen stepped forward. "You think a man won't fight harder when he's protecting the only thing he's got left?" The scarred man reached for his belt. "That a threat?" "No," Owen said, "I steady. It's a promise." From the corner of the porch, Owen grabbed a hunting rifle wrapped in oilcloth. "Inside," I gasped, clutching Rose tighter. The standoff held, 3 against 1. "I've got no quarrel with men doing honest work," Owen said. "But this is stealing. And if you cross that line, you'll answer to more than just me." The deputy hesitated. His eyes flicked toward the horizon where a few townfolk had started to gather, drawn by the tension. The scarred man spat again. "You'll regret this maybe," Owen said. "But I won't regret protecting my family." There it was. Family. He meant it. Clara, watching from the shadows, felt her knees go weak. The weight of witnesses, of doubt, pulled at the men's confidence. The deputy growled, "This ain't over," but they turned, mounted their horses, and rode off in a swirl of dust. Only then did Owen lower the rifle. He stepped through the door, chest heaving. I stood slowly. "You are not hurt." He shook his head. "Not today." Her voice broke. "You called us your family." Owen looked at her, his own voice quiet. "Because you are." Outside, a boy from town ran back down the road, shouting. He stood them off. One man protected the whole place, and just like that, the town began to see Owen Croft and the woman with milk-stained sleeves not as strange charity cases, but as something more. Survivors. Protectors. A family. 3 years passed. The winters came and went, but the little cabin on the edge of Sage Creek stayed warm. Rose was 3 now, her laughter ringing through the garden, her dark curls bouncing as she chased a butterfly. I stood by the fence, one hand resting on the gentle swell of her belly. She was 7 months along, her face aglow with a peace earned and tender. Owen joined her from the barn, a small white fir sapling in his hand. "Ready?" he asked. My nodded. Together, the three of them worked the soil. What is it, Papa? Rose asked. It's a white fir, sweet pea, Owen said. It'll grow tall and strong, just like you. They lowered the sapling into the earth. What made you choose this tree? Mai asked softly. Owen looked at her. White fir is stubborn, he said. Tough against the wind, holds its green through snow and storm. It survives. He turned to her, his voice quieter now, meant only for her. So do we. He reached for her hand. If this tree keeps standing, then so does this. Us. This family. Later, as the sun dipped low, they sat on the porch. Rose curled up at Owen's feet. Mai leaned in the doorway, her hand on her belly. Owen held out his hand to her, their fingers lacing easily, as if they'd always belonged together. Did you know, he said to Rose. When you were little, you didn't want any milk but hers. Rose giggled. Mama milk. The best kind, Mai added, kneeling to kiss her daughter's forehead. The stars began to peek out one by one.